Welcome, everybody, to the WWE podcast. Today, I've got Ashley Mann with me. We've got a lot to discuss in the world of wrestling this week with the hit and run on Jeff Hardy, Mandy Rose's just pointless, awkward, uncomfortable dream that she had, Orton and Edge, Sonya and Lacey Evans. We touch on Rey Mysterio's retirement tomorrow night. So much to discuss, including Matt Riddle, who has been announced to be coming to SmackDown via Kurt Angle. So a lot to discuss. You guys are going to want to hear this one. We'll be right back.
Visit and shop today at somethingtolaughat.store. STLA merch is an online trendy and humorous fashion brand. T-shirts, beanies, hats, coffee mugs, phone cases, and more. Items for men, women, kids, and babies. Again, that's STLA merch at the website somethingtolaughat.store. Safe and secure processing. Excellent customer service. Check out their collections today. Merch to make you laugh, give you pride, give you good vibes. They've got great gifts for friends and family members as well. Go check it out today. That's somethingtolaughat.store. The STLA merch shop at somethingtolaughat.store. An online, trendy, and humorous fashion brand. Go fill your cart today.
Hey, everybody. So it's not often that we talk about music here on this show or bands, but when we do, I think it's when it's worth listening to and when I run across a song or a band that I think it's worth sharing on this show. And that's one of these moments, and that's one of those bands that I think you guys should listen to. And it's just a particular song right now. And the song is called To the Fallen Sons. It's by a band called Carolus, Carolus. And they're a newly formed band from Sweden, and they love making music about history, which is really, really cool. So this song in particular is about Karolians and the soldiers of the Swedish kings, King Charles VI and King Charles VII in the late 17th and 18th centuries. So let me give you a quick sample, and again, you can find them on Spotify under the song To the Fallen Sons. It's by Carolus, Carolus.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast, the most passionate and authentic wrestling analysis on the web. We've got you covered with every Raw, SmackDown, and NXT show, giving you a no bullshit opinion. We know you love wrestling. We do too. So let's get this show underway.
And that's the bottom line. What? 'Cause Stone Cold said so.
Welcome, everybody, to the WWE podcast on this final day of May 2020. And, you know what? I set to give a big FU to 2020. I mean, this is easily the worst year in the history of my life, and many of our lives, right? You think about what's going on, right? I mean, we all know the whole thing going on today or this past week, but it started out in January with losing Kobe Bryant, his daughter. February with the massive Australia fires. March was the coronavirus. April was the worst economy in decades. And then May is the George Floyd disaster that has just brought out the worst in many of us. I'll say that. And everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got their platform to try to use to speak whatever they want to speak about it. boy, oh boy, is there a lot of stuff going on. And, I was going to use this as a platform to speak my opinions on this. And I was going to, but I don't think this is a proper format to do this. Yes, I've got a decent amount of listeners that are that I could speak to, and I know people personally in my own personal life that probably listen to this show, and so maybe at some point I'll create a separate show, make it private or something like that, for my thoughts on this whole thing. They are controversial. I'm sure some people would unfollow me. They're probably not what the mainstream media follows. I'll just leave it at that. They're probably going to create more controversy than it's going to be worth putting on this show. So I'm going to just not talk about this whole thing because your social media is flooded by it, and people losing their minds over it, and people burning down cities and looting and all this stuff. So we'll leave all that stuff for the grown-ups. Why don't the kids come on back here and we'll talk about pro wrestling, because that's what this whole damn show is for. It's for pro wrestling fans. You're trying to get away from all that stuff, so we're not going to talk about it. Again, if you're interested in that, maybe I'll create a separate, like a quick hits show that's private or is labeled as such or something along those lines. I don't think this is the right platform to vent about things on that. So keep an eye out if you're interested in that particular topic that is extremely topical right now and is just absolutely tearing people apart. So anyway, back to pro wrestling. Thank you guys for joining me. And again, we have a weekend review recap here. A lot to talk about with Ashley. I discussed some of those things at the very top of the show. We do have a ton to get to with Ashley in my almost 2-hour talk with her. 2 hours never go so quick. She is just so easy to talk to and so knowledgeable. So always a pleasure having her on, and hope to have her on maybe more than every 3 weeks, right? We'll see what we can do about that. I still don't have Twitter, for those wondering. Wonder no more. I was suspended, as you probably know or may not know by now. I don't know why I was suspended. If you're wondering, what'd you say? I don't know what the hell I did. I'm in Twitter jail with no explanation. I wasn't given the charges against me. I'm just sitting in Twitter jail with no bail and nobody talking to me. I'm just being ignored by the guard, sitting in my holding cell, and everyone is ignoring me, not giving me answers as to why I'm in Twitter jail. So hopefully somebody posts my bail and I'm able to get back out on the forum and be able to discuss wrestling with you guys, because I miss it. It sucks. Yeah, I have email and I have this platform, but it's not the same. I miss it. Damn, I miss it. I want my damn Twitter account back. So hopefully they can resolve things sooner than later, but it's been like 2 freaking weeks now. I'm dying. Okay, enough about my own problems. Y'all don't care. And so one last thing I'll say is, if you like the show, give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And I appreciate the feedback. You can also email me at realwwepodcast@gmail.com if you have comments, questions, or want to get on the show. Send me a voice memo on the show, and I will put it on this show. I'll just copy the MP3 into this show, and I'll answer your question or get your rant or whatever else on the show, and it's always fun to hear new voices. All right. Let's just stop all the suspense and let's get to my conversation with Ashley, which was always a joy to talk with her. So here's Ashley and myself. I'll be back Tuesday, maybe tomorrow with my rant. We'll see. I don't know about that, but I'll be back definitely Tuesday with your Raw review. Wednesday is nostalgia, and back to your weekend review next weekend. And to be honest, a lot of co-hosts coming up this week. I am joined by Michael Gross on Tuesday for your Raw review. Wednesday, Anthony DeMarco is going to join me for Wrestling Nostalgia. And then Saturday is to be determined. So we shall see what's going to be happening. But a lot of co-hosts coming up this week. It's going to be a fun time to be able to talk with people and see what's going on and hear their thoughts and everything else. So let's get to Ashley and myself. Enough of me talking. Hope you enjoy. As always, talk to you soon. Welcome, everybody. It is Sunday evening, May 31st, 2020. And right now, we're going to do our weekend review with Ashley Mann. And there has really never been a better time to play in the sandbox of our wrestling discussion in the history of this show than there is right now. And with everything going on in the world, with obviously, I don't even need to mention, you guys know what's happening, and then the virus on top of it. I mean, it's time to take you out of that reality. It's time to bring you into this alternate reality of professional wrestling, to talk about things that don't really matter but are a ton of fun to discuss because we love it. So Ashley, welcome back. I hope you're staying safe. I hope things are going as well as it possibly can for you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again, Matt. And I think you said it very, very well. This is such a good week to have the show to just literally, like you said, talk about something that's not really that important, but is important in our world, and it is our escape. A lot of people have different avenues and different things that they watch, and wrestling is ours. So I'm stoked to be back, and yeah, we have a lot to talk about and some changes that were made this week, some advances. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, I really am. I've got a lot of notes here, and probably the biggest tragedy of 2020, probably out of everything happening, is the fact that Twitter suspended my account for unknown reasons. I mean, this has got to be the top, news item on Fox and CNN. I mean, they need to I need to give them a call so they can figure out what's going on. This is clearly much more important than anything going on, is the fact that I have no idea why Twitter suspended my account. None. Zero, and they have been silent, so I am sitting here like seething, not being able to do anything. For people who think like I've dropped off the face of the earth, my Twitter account has been suspended with no explanation. So hopefully things get resolved. It's been probably 2 weeks now that it's been offline, and I'm dying here. And this is my mode of communication, so I'm glad you're here with me, Ashley. So let's dive in to the last thing that I saw on SmackDown. And that is the Intercontinental title tournament, which I think has been really well done. I mean, yes, there have been some things that don't make sense with people being inserted back in that already lost, like Sheamus. And we got a final. It is Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles in 2 weeks, so we have some time to build it. I think they've done a great job. This Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles, I don't think you can go wrong there. So how do you like the IC title tournament going so far? And are you excited for a Bryan AJ final?
Yeah, obviously they'll have a very, very good match. So I'm definitely excited by that. Interesting way that they went about it, especially with what happened this past Friday. And I was actually really looking forward to the Daniel Bryan Jeff Hardy match. But I don't know, it's interesting, and I guess I should say yes before we move on. I've really enjoyed the entire tournament in and of itself. I think that is one thing that WWE has seemed to always do well over the years, and granted, I guess you can say that it's not that difficult to do, but tournaments can get stale and can get dull over the week, so they have at least presented this in a pretty interesting way, especially, like I said, with the whole twist on Friday, with what they're doing with Jeff Hardy. So I think that's really interesting. With maybe we could get as deep as to maybe the future of his career and how much longer he has in the company, or if it was just they didn't want him to actually go on to the finals and to become the champion, but they didn't want him to necessarily lose a match, so they decided to go this extreme opposite direction. So yeah, like I said, I'm definitely interested to see where they go from here with it. And it's definitely controversial. I've seen a lot of people have mixed feelings about it on Twitter. So.
Oh well, yeah. You'll have to keep me updated. I don't know what's going on. So yeah, you can. Yo, I'm living vicariously through people having active Twitter accounts. This is great. No, it's great. It's great to know what I'm missing. But yes, so I that is a good point though, because I was really looking forward to Jeff Hardy and Daniel Bryan too. And while I didn't think there would be a clean victor in that match, I thought Sheamus would be the one to interfere and cost Jeff Hardy with Bryan moving on. They still got Bryan moving on, and they still got Jeff Hardy, but they went, like you said, a totally different way of getting Sheamus and to Sheamus versus Jeff Hardy, which, and yes, of course, it hasn't been revealed that Sheamus was the one that did the hit and run. I think we might get the hacker who ends up doing the truth will be heard type of thing, and ends up in his little, I don't know, laboratory or wherever he is, revealing who the person who hit and run is. And maybe it is Sheamus. I think it makes sense that it's Sheamus. I don't know who else it could be. Now, Elias, of course, also got hit, but Jeff Hardy was the one who was framed with alcohol on him, the smell of alcohol, and having him be put in a police car because they want to do blood work. Obviously, with him back on SmackDown on Friday, didn't come back positive. So it's a very interesting angle given Jeff Hardy's history as well, because we all know Jeff Hardy has had several issues in real life with drugs and everything else and alcohol. So pretty ballsy move by WWE, but realistic, and I applaud them for doing something that is different. It didn't seem fake or phony or post-produced in a very hokey way. It was, I think, as good as it could have been. And we got another hit and run in our hands. So not only is Roman Reigns the hit and run victim, but now we can add Jeff Hardy and Elias really to that list.
And all happening on SmackDown. So note to everyone who works on SmackDown, watch yourself. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of interesting when you look back on it. So I guess really quick, do you have any personal feelings or issues with the, I guess, situation itself, the whole DUI route, Jeff's personal history and everything like that? Do you have, because that's what a lot of people have had issues with it, that it is such a real life and a real, a situation that happens every day. I mean, like I said, with Jeff having had it happen to him pretty frequently. Do you have any issues with him using it as a storyline? And if you don't want to answer that, because it is.
I guess I'm probably, the thing is when you're dealing with social media, as we all know, especially today, people are very sensitive to these kinds of things and taking real life and a real life problem and putting it into a storyline that's not real, and you're exposing his real life issues to use it as a benefit for viewership on SmackDown. So here's the thing. I would assume that Jeff Hardy probably gave the sign off that, yeah, I'm comfortable doing this. Let's do it. That's fine. Let's do it. I'm sure with WWE, being very cautious about these types of situations and how they look, they probably got at least Jeff's input in on it. And so assuming that Jeff Hardy was all for it, then fine. If Jeff Hardy did this but didn't really want to and wasn't comfortable, we'll never know. But with that assumption, though, that he was good with it, I'm good with it. I really don't have a problem with it, because I'm okay with taking something real that you can use in a storyline that makes sense in the pro wrestling world. And this would make sense, that somebody would frame Jeff Hardy, pour alcohol on him to make him smell like booze, and then try to put him in jail. I mean, I'm fine with it. I guess some people are very sensitive to it. If you have real life issues with drug or substance abuse, I can see where you might have a problem. Personally, I was okay with it. What did you think?
Yeah, I pretty much feel the exact same way. We've seen storylines like this with substance issues, and when Jeff Hardy in particular in the past as well. That was the whole storyline between him and CM Punk back in, I think it was 08, 09 time frame. And that was done very well, and the best it could be done, in my opinion, for the sensitivity of it. So as odd as this may sound, with situations and storylines like this, I don't really see WWE treating it too poorly, meaning I think they know out of everything this is something that they have to respect boundaries on. And like you said, if Jeff Hardy wasn't behind this or he wasn't okay with it, I'm pretty confident in saying there's no way it would happen, because he's obviously the one who has to do it and portray it. The only thing I am interested in seeing how it plays out and what direction they go in is because during the main event, it did resemble that he was still kind of loopy. So you can either take that as, because I'm curious to see what their answer is to this whole thing, right? Like, did he actually drink and drive and crash, or was he actually set up? Which I'm sure we all know that's the route that they're going to go. But obviously they did steer us in that direction initially for a reason. So it was interesting to see him kind of loopy. But I think they're going to go the route that Sheamus wrecked the car, found Jeff working out or somewhere in the back, beat him up, threw him in the car, and he was still loopy because he, took such a good beating from Sheamus and that type of thing. And obviously, like, we all have to have common sense here too. Like, there's no way that even in Storyland world that Jeff Hardy would be arrested for a DUI, go to jail, and then be released all within 2 hours, So it's just, I get, like you said, why people can definitely be upset about it, and rightfully so. Like, it wouldn't look at them differently or anything like that. But for me personally, I don't have a problem. And like I said, because we've seen this route before, and they executed it pretty well, in my opinion.
They did. And you're right, because there's no path in which WWE is going to allow this story to play out that Jeff Hardy is still having a drug problem and then he accidentally hit Elias unknowingly and stumbled away from the car and was charged at the police station, because the end game for that is he goes to jail and his career's over. I mean, that's what would happen even in Storyland, because of the history that they have shown us about Jeff Hardy. You can't play it that way. So clearly somebody's behind this, which we all assume is Sheamus, because also Jeff Hardy came out to attack Sheamus at the end of SmackDown. So assuming it's Sheamus, and if it's somebody else, I'll be surprised. I have no problem with this. It adds a personal rivalry right away, a nice story leading into Backlash, assuming that it's going to be a one-on-one match. This whole idea of bringing in real-life scenarios into wrestling is nothing new. Now, with that said, I remember when they brought in Reed Flair, and his name was brought up during a promo to Charlotte. I forget I don't know who. It might have been Paige who. Yeah, it was Paige, and it was like mentioning him who he had died already, and he had died of a drug overdose, and so that to me was going a little too far, right? Like there are instances and things that are a little too much, and it's clear that the benefit of the story does not outweigh the negative of going a little too far. So there are instances, but yeah, I'm cool with this. And so back to the Intercontinental title, I think they're making this championship feel like very, very prestigious. They're talking about it being the workhorse title. They're talking about it being or talking about the lineage of it. And I really like that. I like that they're making this feel super important. By the same token, I'm also really sad that Sami Zayn is no longer Intercontinental Champion for reasons that we don't know. I don't know if he just is refusing to come to work for fear of coronavirus or whatever the instance may be. But I am so sad that Sami Zayn never, or maybe he will at some point, but that his run was cut short, because I was loving him as Intercontinental Champion, as brief as it was. The Braun Strowman deal, everything just got cut so short, and I was really disappointed. So there are two sides to this coin.
Oh, for sure, yeah, and I'm right there with you. I'm a huge Sami Zayn fan, always have been. But I'm actually excited for when he is able to come back, because I can only imagine the promo when he returns saying, just pretty much going off on WWE, right? Because he already has on social media how this is absurd and WWE should be doing this and he's the real champion, all that stuff. So I'm just super looking forward to hearing the promo when he does end up coming back, because that's a storyline no matter who it is, right there, right off the bat. So yeah, I'm very excited with what they're doing with this tournament. And even like when you have guys like Daniel Bryan just cutting the promo that he did with I believe it was with Renee, just again putting over the championship and how much it means to him. And like you said, I believe he even mentioned it. He wants it to be the workhorse title again, and that title has always meant something to him, and how devastated he was when he had to relinquish it due to surgery. So all of that is just bringing more light and more shine to the IC title that it hasn't had in quite some time, and I miss that, because that title was always one of my favorites, going back to especially the 99 to the 2005 time frame. For me, it was it was just pretty, and of course the mid 90s as well, but for me that's when I really started getting into wrestling at the time. So yeah, I'm just stoked that it's actually showing its rightful place on the show again.
Yes, that's ultimately what this should be about, is making sure that the championship feels prestigious. It's not just okay, we're running a tournament and you don't hear from anybody and it's just kind of okay, let's update the brackets this week. They're really putting a lot of stock into this. There have been so many backstage promos about it. Now we have the hit and run storyline involved. It's woven throughout the entire show. I'm loving it. And it's down to Bryan and AJ So I guess kind of wrapping up the IC title discussion here. What's your pick? I know that this is not a prediction show, but I got to ask. I mean, we've come this far. Who do you think's going to win it?
Man, guessing right now, I would have to go with AJ Styles. Just with knowing that Daniel Bryan's going to be taking some time off within the next few months, I don't see them putting it on him just to turn around and take it right back off in a couple weeks. And I think, again, that kind of like Sammy, that'll be a good storyline whenever he is able to return as well. That he wants a rematch, either if AJ Styles has it at that time or with Sammy, because there's obviously still a storyline there. So I think right now, and AJ Styles deserves it, with everything and all the work that he's put in over the past few months, since everything has happened. And of course, especially if they keep him as the heel version of himself as well, he'll be a good talking piece on the show to counteract Braun Strowman being the Universal Champion. So I think AJ would be a good choice right now. He can hold it for the next 4 to 6 months, depending on what direction you want to go with it, and truly be the workhorse of the show. And just kind of take it in a different direction. So my choice would be AJ.
I'm with you. I'm with you. While it's not impossible Daniel Bryan wins, and this is by no means a slam dunk at all. Like this could go either way, but to me the logic would say AJ. Just as for the reasons you mentioned about Bryan taking time off, and also when you briefly touched on that Braun Strowman is Universal Champion, you got to have a little bit of balance in heel and babyface champions. So outside of Bayley, that's really the only heel champion on SmackDown, not the women's tag team champions. You got the Universal Champion. The Intercontinental Champion was a heel in Sammy, so I would think they'd want to kind of continue that with AJ. And I think AJ could be a very good Intercontinental Champion as a heel, bragging. I think eventually he'll probably get a little bit of backup as a champion. You usually need some guys to take bumps for you. I don't know who those could be. I don't even know if they're thinking that way, but AJ Styles to me should have a nice long run as Intercontinental Champion. I think he's deserving of it. And to really reinvent AJ at this point, after AJ got buried at WrestleMania in the Boneyard match, there wasn't a big character change. And he even alluded to this in an interview that he did. I forget the source, or I'd name it. That he felt that upon his comeback to SmackDown after he got buried, that he should have, and that would have been a great time to have something different in his character. Something changed. And nothing changed. It's just kind of the same old AJ without Gallows and Anderson. And this, to me, with him as champion,
still wearing the OC shirt.
Yeah,
like, not even his own AJ Styles. Like, especially that first week, I at least expected like his old AJ's like with the P1 on the front and all that, but it was still the OC, and I don't know if that was just like a shout out to them, which I get, but yeah,
it could be, and they probably have leftover stock of those T-shirts, and he's probably just, and I get it, royalty checks, great
for sure.
So there's probably that too, but so I don't know. I think that this could be a good time for AJ to get revitalized and refreshed and repackaged in a small way, not totally redo his gimmick. But I'm with AJ. I mean, when he said that would be a great time. Yes, burying somebody alive. If I got buried alive, that would change me, right? Like, and it should change wrestling characters. It changed The Undertaker from the American Badass back to the Dead Man back in 2004. Like, there are reasons that you should undergo character changes, and nothing is more extreme than getting literally buried alive. So I'm totally with AJ on that, of something needed to be changed, and really haven't seen anything yet, but this could be a good time to kind of re-kick and restart his WWE career for however much longer he's going to be in the company.
Yeah, I totally agree. And really quick before we move on, I don't know if you've heard, but they have re-signed Drew Gulak. So
yes,
if AJ does win, and I could kind of see that maybe being the ending point for Bryan, if AJ beats him next week, and maybe Drew can kind of pick up the slack and kind of, make it the storyline he wants to, like, avenge Bryan's loss, and they can kind of stretch that out for a few weeks. So that's just an idea.
No, I'm with you. And Drew Gulak, when I saw him in the Battle Royal, was that was great. I was like, yes. And I didn't know he was re-signed until then. And then, and what's strange though about that Battle Royal, as I think about some of the nitpicks, they saw somebody get thrown out from people that were not in the Battle Royal. And the announcers were going crazy about that. And, I mean, they never talk about this in the Royal Rumble, but guys and girls constantly throw each other out when they're already eliminated. And I don't want to go on that rant. But it was just kind of like one of those things where, okay, well, how did the referees know that he went over the top rope and not through the middle rope? And because they didn't see him until he hit the floor. It's all about the top rope. So there's that, and then the announcers go crazy over somebody who was eliminated already. I don't know. So anyway, all right, well, let's move on a little bit here, and I want to jump a little bit to Monday Night Raw and cover the major angle that's happening there of Orton versus Edge, because I don't think that we've talked about the greatest wrestling match ever that we're about to witness of Orton versus Edge, and I have, for a couple of weeks now, ranted my face off about them marketing it as the greatest wrestling match ever for so many reasons. But maybe you have a different take. If you do, great. But what do you think, number one, about the way that they're marketing it as such, and two, the actual match itself?
I mean, I'll take the last part of that first because that's probably going to be the shortest. The match itself, obviously, I'm looking forward to. Like I've said numerous times with you, I'm a huge Edge fan, and Randy Orton for that matter, but Edge especially. So of course the match is going to be great, and I am excited to see what Edge looks like in an actual wrestling match. Like they mentioned, you know, he did start out in the Royal Rumble, which isn't an average match. Granted, he was in there for a while, and he did do a lot of work in there. Wrestling a one-on-one match is different. I mean, not that I know, obviously, but I can imagine it's slightly different. And then, of course, with the last man standing match, depending on how many edits they did and how many times they started and stopped, it's a completely different layout. But not selling them short or anything like that. I think it's going to be a really good match. The greatest match ever? Not quite. Hey, and if it is, I will be so thrilled to be wrong. But yeah, I can't. And part of me wonders if we should all just be in the know, like we should assume that they think that they, being WWE, think that we're all in on the joke, right? That of course it's not the greatest wrestling match ever. It's just like, just calling it that just to kind of be ironic about it. But it's, in my opinion, like, yes, Randy Orton and Edge are phenomenal in their respective roles and their respective characters, and they each had their strengths and weaknesses, but in my opinion, they were never, like, maybe Randy Orton was more so a little bit than Edge, but, like, I just never looked to them for, like, the best wrestling match on the card, right? You would always get a very good match, but the story with them was, I don't want to say more important, but probably the thing that was always spotlighted and featured the most on the match. You can always count on them to have a good, solid technical match, but it wasn't the greatest, right? Whereas a Shawn Michaels type match, you know the storyline is going to be phenomenal and the match itself is going to be phenomenal because that's just what he always delivered, or 9 times out of 10. So it's just so weird that, especially like out of all the opportunities that they had, out of all the matches, out of just, I don't even want to go down the list because that we would sit here all night going over each one that could have been declared the greatest wrestling match of all time, even before we saw the match. It's just odd to me. It's just really odd. So, yeah, and I kind of feel bad for Edge and Randy Orton because I feel like they really don't want to be saying that. But it's just one of those things. I'm just choosing to not really focus on it because out of everything, I'm just like, you know what? It's just kind of stupid to me, and I just ignore it. Although the graphic is huge, so when they're doing their little prompts with the pictures, like, it takes up the whole left-hand corner. It's kind of ridiculous, but yeah.
They're not hiding this, yeah.
And it is funny because, like, they don't change the bottom part of it. So if it's like, for instance, like Asuka and Nia Jax, like, it'll still say the greatest wrestling match in the left-hand corner, and they'll have like their pictures or whoever they're talking about. So it's just kind of funny.
It's part of the logo. It's not just for that match. They actually built this.
It's the Backlash logo.
They have doubled down on this, and I have. Absolutely, and I know it's a small thing, and I get it. It's a small thing, but they've now made it a part of the logo. You can't get away from it. I don't know how the announcers say it with a straight face. I don't know how when Charlie Caruso randomly said it that Edge and Orton didn't bust out laughing. All of it, it's just, it's hysterical but angering at the same time. Like, the thing is, that is, even if they absolutely tore it down and they had a 5-star match, the fact of the matter is that the greatest wrestling match ever is subjective anyway. So
exactly,
even if they absolutely just, it was unbelievable, which it won't be. I mean, these two are great, but to put it at that high, to make the bar that high, is absolutely. It's hysterically angering, and you can't ever have the greatest wrestling match ever because it's subjective. It's not something that's fact. It's always going to be opinionated based. So, I mean, I could just throw a few examples out there. You're telling me this is going to be better than Undertaker Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25, or the very first Hell in a Cell match, or CM Punk John Cena at Money in the Bank, Hogan Andre. I mean, like, the list goes on and on. Like Rock Austin. Like, this is just, it's insanity that they would even come up with this. It's not even, it's like they're not even self-aware that this is a parody of themselves, that it's not even funny. I don't know what this is supposed to be. If this is actually supposed to be taken as a serious thing, that it's going to be the greatest wrestling match ever. I mean, I could go on. I've ranted so much on it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's really bizarre to me. It's just, for me, it's just really one of the, and I don't know why this, out of all things that they've done recently, just kind of stands out, but it's just like, why? Like, you didn't have to. Like, the match built itself. Like, they did a phenomenal job cutting the promo. Like, yes, Charlie kind of ruined it at the end, but even with that, like, you were great until you labeled it something that you didn't need to label it as. So, and in my opinion, too, it can be viewed as a regular wrestling match that could just be a simple pinfall match, but you throw a stipulation on it just because you think that it'll add that extra something, when you really don't need to. Just let it be an actual wrestling match and let them go out there and tell the story, and that's it. So, in a way, I feel kind of bad for them because we're focusing more on the stupid tagline for it than what will most likely be a really good match. So
it's because they're putting an expectation on the match before it happens. If something, everybody has their own greatest wrestling match. A lot of them are common, but you don't know it's the greatest match you've ever seen until you've seen it. It's not something ahead of time that you go, I know for sure that's going to be the greatest wrestling match ever. And for the promotion itself to tell you that this is going to be the greatest wrestling match ever is setting the bar stupidly high. There's so many negatives to this. I'm just going to get off it because it's seriously, easily, out of however many years, 20 plus years of watching wrestling, easily the dumbest tagline I've ever seen. By far, for any match that I've ever seen. It's just so, it's awful. But the match itself, yes, I'm really looking forward to it, to seeing what we were cheated out of at WrestleMania from them in the ring, because they were only in the ring for a couple of RKOs, and then they immediately went to the back for a few hours and started hitting each other with everything that they could see, and it became redundant. I mean, I hate to say it, but I was disappointed with it. Yes, the crowd wasn't there, and I felt bad, very bad for Edge, and that was obviously he got dealt a really crappy hand and all that, but they got robbed. Edge got robbed big time with no crowd. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, we all know it was too long. I think that we got robbed with them not being in the ring, and that's what I'm looking forward to, it as a straight up wrestling match. So that is a big positive. I'm going to pretend that the greatest wrestling match ever is not the expectation, and just look at it as two guys that are absolute professionals in the ring, and I expect a very good match, and I'll leave it at that. So. Any final thoughts on Randy Orton versus Edge? I mean, beyond, and also Edge's promo he just continues to crank out believable promo after believable promo, and his backstage sit down promos that he does. I mean, was Edge always this good with promos, or did he just sit in promo school for the last 9 years while he was recovering? I mean, he's a damn genius on the mic.
Yeah, well, I in all honesty, I do hear that going to acting school has benefited a lot of them. And I don't, The Rock obviously was always a great promo, but even he had mentioned in the past, like, acting school just really helped him refine certain aspects of cutting a promo and just speaking in general. So, and I know Edge in the past has mentioned that he did do a lot of those classes in the beginning. But to me, Edge was always a really good promo. Because he was always, in my opinion, especially more so when he was in his singles bout in his career, his stories is what carried the matches. So in my opinion, he's always been a really good promo. I think now, just with the heartfelt meaning behind everything and just the story that he's had to overcome and everything that he's been through the past 9 years, and we didn't think we'd see him, I think now we're just so emotionally connected to him that it just means that much more now. But yeah, other than that, yeah. I'm looking forward to the match.
No, I am too, and I'm gonna go with it with a kind of a mid-range expectation, and that's really where I'm gonna go with it. And what's great too, and here's some positive things, and I'm guessing that you also view this as a positive. The fact that they will at least have some people in the audience, albeit NXT trainees that are probably instructed to cheer for the heels, cheer for the babyfaces, boo the heels. But there's at least crowd noise. I mean, yes, there's 20 people there, whatever. Even that, to me, has really helped with the presentation. I don't care if they're ripping off AEW. Oh, they're just doing AEW. I don't care. The fact of the matter is it makes the presentation better. And it has, to me, made this show, I'd say 2 or 3 notches more watchable. Just with that crowd noise and not constant, creaking. And you can hear things that I know I shouldn't hear, and, background noise that I know I shouldn't hear. And I'm looking for somebody to be reacting to what's going on in the ring beyond the announcers. And I don't know, how do you feel about the NXT trainees taking the role of the WWE fans? I
loved it the second I saw it on Raw. It made such a big difference. And yeah, it is obvious they are trying to be the basic fan, or the fan that WWE would want us to all be, cheer for exactly who the good guy is and exactly who the bad guy is, and just go from there. So yeah, that is pretty noticeable, but I'm just so happy to actually hear background noise and to see people there, even though they are behind plexiglass. And even that in and of itself is interesting to see the difference that WWE route, or the different route that WWE took compared to AEW, and whether WWE is going to leave it like that for the next few months or per se, or if they're going to end up changing it. But yeah, I'm just happy that you can actually see and hear people again. And it definitely does give more life to the show. And like you said, it does mask some things that you shouldn't necessarily hear. And I'm happy for the wrestlers too, because they actually have people to play off of now as well. So it's all positives in my book.
Stay right there. The WWE podcast will return after this quick break.
Hey, everybody. So it's not often that we talk about music here on this show or bands, but when we do, I think it's when it's worth listening to, and when I run across a song or a band that I think it's worth sharing on this show. And that's one of these moments, and that's one of those bands that I think you guys should listen to. And it's just a particular song right now. And the song is called To the Fallen Sons. It's by a band called Carolus, Carolus. And they're a newly formed band from Sweden. And they love making music about history, which is really, really cool. So this song in particular is about Karolians and the soldiers of the Swedish kings, King Charles VI and King Charles VII in the late 17th and 18th centuries. So let me give you a quick sample. And again, you can find them on Spotify under the song To the Fallen Sons. It's by Carolus, Carolus.
Welcome back to the WWE Podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
Yep, it is, and I honestly, when people ask me, I have not heard when they're going to be bringing fans back. I would say that they'll probably be late to the game because there's so much to it beyond just the PR look of it. If something goes wrong, there's health codes, and you got to worry about from state to state.
Yeah.
What phase are they in? Where are you at? What are the health restrictions in this city and that city? Are they in?
And the amount of time
Yeah.
I was thinking about too, like it would take, like even if you just say, let's say you allow 200 fans to buy tickets, right? Just put 200 tickets on sale, first come, first serve. How long the process is going to take to get them tested to even enter the building, right? Because you can't necessarily trust people to get tested, and even if like someone is, let's say, not feeling too great, like they already bought their ticket, travel down there, they're going to go regardless, like if it's up to them, they're going to go. So if you're testing people before, like fans, before they can even get into the arena, how long is that process going to take? Because getting into the arena in and of itself already takes a good amount of time. Granted, I'm sure we won't be talking thousands of people, but it's just going to be so different and time consuming and something that they're going to have to weigh the pros and cons. And that's going to be cost effective as well, because they're going to make sure that they provide masks and certain things. So it's just not going to just be like, okay, we can open, but only 200 people, but you're good to go, right? Like just come in as normal.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they take everyone's temperature at the door. I mean, I know where I work, that's what they're proposing whenever we reopen, which hasn't happened, or building anyway, is like we're going to have to take everyone's temperature at the door. Well, the problem with that is you may catch some people that if they've contracted it, what if they're asymptomatic, right? Like there's a lot of cases in which you don't run a fever. So the only factor that you're using is temperature. Well, that's not the only catch-all. I mean, so the fact is that outside of testing everyone at the door, getting the results in minutes, hoping that there's not a false negative, because there's been a lot of those, by the way, you're never going to prevent everyone who wants to come that can't, or that is there that may have the virus from entering the building, because there's lots of ways around it. If it's a false negative, they're asymptomatic, on and on and on. But if everyone has to wear a mask and stay 6 feet apart, that's always been kind of the protocol throughout the entire United States anyway. So if they just follow that procedure, I think they'll be okay. But again, I don't know at what capacity. I'm sure it'll start out at like 25, 50%, 75. But the fact is, regardless of everything we just talked about, at what stage does WWE want to dip their toe back into going around the country again? Because from a financial standpoint, if you only have 25% capacity in a building, but you're paying the city to be there in that arena, to rent the arena, all of the expenses that come with being in an arena, you may not end up breaking even. That was double negative. You may not end up breaking even with all of the expenses that you have to incur if it's a 25% gate. So I don't even know how this is all going to work with WWE. I would still think it's probably going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 months away until we have at least 50 to 75% capacity. That's my take anyway.
Yeah, and really quick, I think Florida has been one of the states that are more lax with the laws and the reopening and the do's and don'ts over the past couple months, especially the past month in general. So honestly, what I could see in between the two companies, I can see AEW allowing fans to come in before WWE. I think WWE is as much as badly. Honestly, I think WWE needs the fans more than AEW does, because AEW's wrestlers do such a great job at ringside. And WWE, at least as of week 1, you can definitely tell, like we just said, that they're kind of restricted in a way, and poor people, they have to stand the entire time. So on Raw, especially, like for the 3 hours, it's just, I feel so bad. But so, like I was saying, I could see WWE probably maybe closer to the end of the year, if anything, but I could see them just doing shows at the Performance Center for the first few months. And kind of just seeing how that goes, playing that out, and then maybe going from there. And hopefully at that point, more states will be open, and maybe this thing will be a little flattened out at that point, or at least we'll have more answers. So I think maybe that's how they'll play it out and just basically treat Florida as their base right now, and then just do everything there for the foreseeable future and then go from there.
I think that's what they're probably going to do too. They have set up shop pretty darn well in the Performance Center, and with, like you said, with Florida being one of the more lax states in their rules and regs with the restrictions, certainly would be a good place to guinea pig this whole thing. And they'll probably stay there, like you said, for until this. A lot of those states have lifted their restrictions where they can at least fill the buildings most of the way or whatever. I mean, who knows what this is all going to work out to, but that's probably my guess too, that they're just going to kind of house themselves in their little hole down in Orlando until most things have been resolved and it looks like the virus has passed. Again, this is all just kind of projecting our thoughts here, but all right. Well, back to the landscape here in WWE. Onto something much lighter. I guess that's not the right word here, considering we're talking about Otis now. But Mandy Rose's dream on SmackDown. What was this? I mean, they're at the pool, right? And Mandy Rose and Otis are sitting by the pool, and they have a glass of champagne, and Otis is doing all his oh yeah stuff, and they're sharing a glass, and the next thing you know, she dozes off. And once they did the little dreamy transition, I said, "Oh no!" I was like, "Oh no! What is this?" They have to do something stupid, don't they? And it was just a dream about a place she's already in, and it was Otis. I thought when she woke up, it was going to be Dolph Ziggler there, and she's feeling guilty about having dreams about another man. No, it was just Otis, and they kiss. But then she gets in the pool, and they kiss anyway. Like what? What the hell was this? Do you have any idea?
So it was, again, so bizarre. Maybe that's my word for the night, but it was just so, not what I was expecting. I was, like you, was expecting either Dolph Ziggler or some male model, just a stereotypical, looking guy that you would normally think that a Mandy Rose type of female would go for. And when it was Otis, it was just, it's like, wait, what? But it was a different version of Otis. He was more confident. He was just more of a man's man of Otis, and not the more timid, just oh, my little peach. He was just he took control. So I don't know if that was maybe a foreshadow for the future. Maybe Mandy is what Otis needs to toughen up, or maybe not toughen up, but just take a more serious route, especially since he has the briefcase now. So maybe this could be a sign that Mandy is what Otis needs to get on track and take things more seriously. So, but the whole kissing at the end, I was not expecting them to actually kiss. I was, the whole thing, I just kept on saying, wow, really? And it just kept getting even more weirder and more unexpected.
It was almost uncomfortable. It got to the point of as much as we all rooted for them to be together on Valentine's Day and that thing that's strung out for months, now that they're actually making out, I'm like, I don't want to see this. It's just weird. If they do an occasional peck on the cheek, but to do full makeout, come on.
Even a quick peck on the lips,
yes.
I was expecting something like that, but a full makeout, I was wow. And then
no, they went to town. They went to town. Nobody held back.
Okay.
Yeah, and you really wonder in real life what Otis is thinking. He must be loving this, because the fact of the matter is, in real life, let's be honest, he probably would not be with a girl like Mandy. I mean, it's just a fact. He probably wouldn't be. So he is truly living out his dream right now, I'm sure. And that's great. And I'm really wondering also what Mandy is thinking of this whole thing as a person. I mean, she's probably whatever, I'm getting paid to do this. It's cool. It's fine. But the seeing them make out was uncomfortable. I mean, they could have, the second they started doing their deep kissing, they should have just cut it. But it went on for it felt like minutes, but it was only I don't know, probably 10 seconds or so.
Otis is just an innocent. I just view Otis as not just an innocent dude, an innocent character. He was just telling us how he had a learning disability as a kid and how much his mom means to him. And so I was feeling not bad for him, but more in a sentimental route. And now I'm seeing him actually make out with Mandy. So just like, wow, again, like a complete left turn. So I just wasn't expecting it. Right?
No,
like,
I wasn't. But like you said with the Dream, though, he felt like a different man. And what I noticed the most, yes, his demeanor was different, but his voice. He didn't do his like play voice.
Yes,
it was just a straight talking guy. I was like, oh, this is nice. Mm-hmm. It felt much better than his. At first, it was kind of endearing with his oh yeahs and his like jelly shaking belly and all that stuff. He's kind of like an endearing character, and I think that's kind of worn off a little. And to hear him just talk straight like a normal guy, I was like, this is great. Like, can you do this all the time? That's how I felt anyway. It was just nice as a refresher, but I'm probably digging way too much into this. This was just, I don't know, entertainment to try to entertain. I don't know. I mean, It probably was just a Vince McMahonism of, we got to get this crap in here. We can't have all wrestling. It's probably what this was. I mean, it was Vince McMahon with his bleach blonde female obsession that he's had over the years with Sable and with Tori Wilson. And, I mean, you just go down the list. You just add Mandy Rose to that. And, man, Vince McMahon has done some weird things with some blondes over the last, 10, 20 years. So,
yeah, that's
God.
true.
Think about it. I mean, like, think about when he made out with Trish Stratus in front of his comatose wife at WrestleMania. Think about like something like that. Like, he's done some weird stuff. So, oh God. All right, on to something a lot more serious, and I think something that I'm surprisingly looking forward to is Lashley versus Drew McIntyre, and how well MVP has been doing as in this new role of being the manager that he has just so effortlessly slid into. As he does kind of part-time wrestling, but to me the real money in MVP is in the managerial role, being a mouthpiece for a guy that isn't great on the mic. When we see it with Paul Heyman and Brock, it's doable. And now we have Lashley, who looks like the mountain of a man, finally tearing himself away from Lana, getting rid of that, shedding that, just, in my estimation, a god-awful storyline that I think damaged both guys, or both men and women here, the Lashley and Lana. I think it really did not do them any favors. And putting him in with MVP, who has been really tearing it up on the mic, being very believable, just settling into that role very nicely, giving him multiple segments on Raw. I mean, he has really added a lot to Lashley, and I like the pull apart from Raw. I think that Lashley is a credible threat, although I don't think he'll win. He's a credible threat. He's a guy that's never got an opportunity at the championship against Drew McIntyre. It's a new matchup. Everybody loves new. And again, MVP, I can't say enough about him.
I agree 100% with you. MVP, and he's one of those that I think had situations not been what they have been for the past few months. I don't think he would have been getting the time on TV that he has, or the role for that matter. So he is one of those, like an Asuka, that I'm just really happy for, that they're getting their time to really shine. And I agree with everything you said about MVP. He's kind of revitalized the Lashley character in a way, and been what Lashley has needed, in my opinion, just that mouthpiece and just that support right there that he needed, because he has obviously everything. He looks incredible, obviously, like he is what you would think a pro wrestler is, but he was just missing that one little thing, and in my opinion, MVP was it. So I agree with you. I don't think he's going to beat Drew at Backlash, but man, I think it's going to be a hard-hitting match, and I can even see them having a rematch after this when Bobby Lashley loses. I can see MVP kind of talking their way back into another match with Drew, and kind of dragging it out as well. So, it's a credible opponent for Drew, because visually speaking, of course, like I just said, like Bobby Lashley is a credible opponent for him. So it's just gonna be a really good match. And again, I'm so happy that they put the title on Drew, and Drew has really saved the show and been the star that they needed on Monday nights since WrestleMania. So I'm happy with what they're doing in the grand scheme of things, because in my opinion, it could be a lot worse. So I'm happy with the direction that they're going in right now.
And they're building Lashley as a credible threat. And I hope that this is not just a quick one-off with Lashley. I don't think it will be. Or even just a quick 1-2 pay-per-view, like you said, if there's a follow-up next month. My hope is that they take advantage of Bobby Lashley while he's here and realize that this is a guy that doesn't come along often. With the obviously his physique is beyond human. He's got a great look. His promos were never good, but now you've solved that with MVP being absolutely brilliant as his mouthpiece. And you put him in a championship match, you could really build him from here. Again, this is not about him winning the championship right now. I don't think anyone believes he will. It wouldn't make any sense at all. But it's about building Bobby Lashley to potentially move on to somebody bigger, maybe Brock Lesnar, right? Even though Brock Lesnar doesn't have the championship, people have always wondered, what about Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar? I think that's something that could happen. Could it happen at SummerSlam? Could it happen even further than that? It could. But to me, the focus on this is not about Bobby winning the title. It's about building Bobby Lashley as a beast and building him and using a guy like him to his full potential. And to me, I mean, I could see Lashley versus Lesnar. I mean, could you see that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the exact route that I could imagine them going in with, especially with SummerSlam being right around the corner. Of course, it's not most likely going to be in Boston like originally planned, but if they can get Brock back in for a SummerSlam match, I can see that being that match, because who better to call out Brock Lesnar than an MVP, mouthpiece wise, right? And you can just imagine MVP and Paul Heyman going back and forth on the mic, and carrying that storyline and kind of having Bobby Lashley be the, I guess, and this could be debatable too, but you can kind of turn Brock face in a way. Like you can have Brock be the baby face and just have Bobby Lashley be that new badass heel and just be standing there in that visual beast, that force that Brock Lesnar normally is, and have MVP sitting there hyping him up, and have kind of Paul Heyman just at a loss for words. So I just think that there's so much that you could put into that. Again, it would be, just another one of those things that's unfortunate that you can't witness live, but man, they could really put some substance into that if that's the route that they want to go. But regardless, they shouldn't just drop Lashley after this. Not with the work they've been doing with him and how good it's been. They just need to make sure whatever they do after this, they protect him and just continue to build him strong.
Exact. That is, and I can't stress that enough. I mean, this is not about Lashley just being the hotshot 1-2 pay-per-view punch here. They've got something here. I don't know how big this is, but there's something here that's special between MVP and Lashley. And now again, could it be just something that 6 months from now we go, yeah, that it's getting kind of boring, it didn't really work, but we could say at least they tried.
Yeah, and you get 6 months out of it.
Yep. Or we could say, damn, where's this been? I mean, we could be saying either one. And I'm hoping for the latter. I'm hoping that we go, this is awesome. Where has this Lashley been for 13 years? And I think it's possible. But again, yes, you're right. This is about building stars, and Lashley's not exactly young. This guy is, I believe, in his early 40s. I mean, he's not a young guy considering his profession. Now he's in tremendous shape. But the fact is that he's, it's either really now or never with Lashley. So you're right. They could sell it as a heel Lashley versus a babyface Brock. They could do that. But the thing is, if you get to that match, and we're all anticipating eventually that happening, there's a lot of back end work to do with all the things with Lashley being perceived as kind of like, the guy with a great body and he looks like he's mean, but he's going to lose. They've got to change that, and they've started it. But they've got a lot of work to do because they have educated us for how many years that he's been in WWE. And yes, he wasn't in WWE for many years. He took a 7-year gap or whatever it was, being in TNA. We know that. But in WWE land, there has always been this perception of Lashley as kind of the guy that just never wins the big one. He's great body, not a great talker. They need to change that. and to make it feel like it's a massive deal when Lashley and Lesnar come together. Because right now, if it happened on Monday Night Raw, it would still be a fairly big deal because of how it looks. But how you perceive Bobby Lashley in potentially winning that match would not be the same as if they had done a ton of work to build him as a monster for 4 months and then get him to Lesnar. So that's my thought on that. Is there's a lot of work to do, but they're on the right path.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, let's move on here to Rey Mysterio. Apparently, tomorrow night will be having his retirement ceremony after Seth Rollins, who has been freaking awesome. I mean, lately. He had a bit of a downturn, lost a ton of momentum after WrestleMania and Money in the Bank losses, and I think needed a little bit of a kick in the backside. And then came out disheveled 2 weeks ago on Raw, which was awesome. And you didn't know where he was at. God, that was awesome. I know if some people don't like his music. I love Seth Rollins' new music. I think it had to happen. It fits his Jesus-like character to a T. We couldn't have the burn it down screaming when he's coming down with his hands folded.
Yeah.
It's a contrast. It wouldn't have worked. So I like this new evolution of Seth. He's coming down with his hands folded. He has disciples that are blindly following him. He gains those disciples by going to people at their weakest moment. That's a cowardly thing to do. Not fighting for the people that are his disciples, but allowing them to fight for him. I mean, there's so much about this character that you just despise but love to despise. And I think Seth is on a great rebuilding path right now since he lost AOP, lost Murphy prior to WrestleMania, had 2 massive losses. I think he's on the big upswing. And now we have him and Rey Mysterio, who seem to be on a collision course. I would assume that this is going to be a Backlash match with Rey Mysterio versus Seth Rollins after we realize that this is not truly going to be a retirement ceremony, or Rey Mysterio gets so angry at Seth for interrupting this ceremony that he ends up saying, "This is okay. I can't do this. I'm taking you out at Backlash." Right. So those are my thoughts. Give me your thoughts on Seth Rollins. How are you liking this and the Rey Mysterio retirement ceremony tomorrow night?
Seth first. I love the direction that they have been going in with him. I love the Messiah gimmick. It's so great. He just plays it so well. He's that slimy guy that is really great at everything he does, and it's annoying, and you hate it because like he's cocky about it, but like he's cocky about it in like a calm and like quiet way sometimes, and like it's just, but then at the same token too, like he can do a complete 180 and just flip off the handle and just really, be a what. And it's just like you said, like you love to hate him. And this version of Seth Rollins is, I think, the best version that we've seen. And in my opinion, it just shows again that he is one of those guys that just should always be a heel. And it's again, like we both said, that it's a respect thing. Like you have that respect for him, but you are perfectly comfortable with booing him. So it's just perfect. And again, it's amazing to see what he's been able to do with not having to be in the title picture and maintaining his star power within the past few weeks, and really ramped it back up within the past few weeks, I guess I should say. And again, I loved the disheveled Seth with the hair. Like that image, it was just great. Like him standing, I'll never forget him standing on the side of the ring, just not moving with his hair everywhere. It was just perfect.
It's a meme waiting to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was just gold. And I love that it was just for 1 week, and it was the week that Becky made her announcement. It was just perfect. It was just looking back on it now, it was a fun little Easter egg that they gave us, in my opinion, and that was his reaction. And look, we got something out of it. It led us into the whole Rey Mysterio angle, which, again, this is another one which I'm interested in seeing the route that they go, especially tomorrow. I'm kind of wondering if we get a Dominic sighting out of all this. I don't know if he's still been training with everything that's been going on, or what he's doing, or if he's even a thought right now, but I think having him in the picture with Seth being the Messiah, you can just take it so many different routes in and of itself there, and maybe having the initial match at Backlash, but then maybe down the road maybe you can drag this out to SummerSlam as well, and then have Ray put his career on the line, and then, against Seth or whatever you want to do. If Ray truly is winding down and that's the route that they need to be going. But yeah, I'm excited to see this match too, because that match is going to be great. That, could be the greatest match of all time if going by WWE standards nowadays.
Yeah, because you could just
and it's on the pay-per-view. So
exactly.
That's holding it. So
yep. Yes, and yes. So your question about Dominic, yeah, I think that would make sense given that he's been a much more on-screen type of figure with Rey Mysterio over the last 6 months or so, and I think Dominic will get involved, and maybe Seth surrounds the ring with his disciples, and they threaten Dominic and they threaten Rey Mysterio. I think that's definitely possible. Or he could end up
being a disciple.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, or try to recruit him.
Could you imagine Seth having Rey's son?
Oh gosh. Well, Eddie Guerrero already tried that. I mean, so so yeah. This is going to be interesting, and I'm really looking forward to this match, assuming, again, we're getting a step ahead of ourselves thinking that this is going to be a Backlash match, but given pro wrestling logic, this is not going to be a true retirement ceremony. You can't have Rey Mysterio, one of the biggest legends of all time, have a retirement ceremony that was announced only a week ahead of time, and they haven't done anything to really promote it since. Maybe there was a promotion on SmackDown once or twice, but this would be everywhere if this was truly his retirement ceremony. So 99% chance that this is just an angle to get to Seth versus Rey Mysterio at Backlash. And maybe Rey Mysterio has a patch over his eye, so it's Rey Mysterio can only fight with one eye. I mean, that's probably going to be the case. So this is going to be an interesting match. I love what they've done with Rey Mysterio, too. I mean, we've praised Seth, but I don't think anybody really anticipated when Rey Mysterio came back to the company that he would be contributing as much as he has been, between being United States champion, getting involved with Humberto Carrillo and Andrade, Angel Garza, that whole group, albeit a little bit brief. He got involved there. He had Brock Lesnar versus or for the WWE or the Universal Championship. I mean, there were some moments that Rey Mysterio had that I'm like, I did not see this coming in his return to WWE. I mean, and looking like the old Rey Mysterio. I mean, yeah, he might be a quarter of a step behind what he used to be, but if you're not really looking for it, you don't see it. He's just ageless right now. I don't see a need for him to retire, truly. Obviously, that's a personal decision for him. But from an in-ring perspective, and from an on-mic and WWE's use of him perspective, they have gotten way more juice out of this squeeze than I ever thought they would with Rey. So credits and props to WWE and Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, again, I agree with you 100%. Actually, couldn't have said it better myself. I was not expecting almost a damn near full-time schedule for Rey when he initially came back. And I'm so thankful that we've gotten it. He's really, really contributed a lot and really been a staple. And yeah, like you said, I think he's probably in better shape now than his initial run with WWE. Especially if you go back and look at just size-wise of his body. Like, you can just tell he's in much better shape. And he may be a tad slower, but you can't even tell. He's just so smooth with everything still. So I'm just enjoying every minute that we get of him.
Hey, everybody. So it's not often that we talk about music here on this show or bands, but when we do, I think it's when it's worth listening to, and when I run across a song or a band that I think it's worth sharing on this show, and that's one of these moments, and that's one of those bands that I think you guys should listen to, and it's just a particular song right now, and the song is called To the Fallen Sons. It's by a band called Carolus, Carolus, and they're a newly formed band from Sweden. And they love making music about history, which is really, really cool. So this song in particular is about Karolians and the soldiers of the Swedish kings, King Charles VI and King Charles VII in the late 17th and 18th centuries. So let me give you a quick sample. And again, you can find them on Spotify under the song To the Fallen Sons. It's by Carolus, Carolus.
Welcome back to the WWE Podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
That's exactly what we need to be doing, and I think that my guess is he's probably got another year, maybe two. I don't know his contract terms, but he looks like he could go another couple of years. I mean, he has just been keeping himself in great shape or getting surgeries he needs or whatever. I know he had a ton of knee issues and all that, so looking forward to however long this run goes with Ray. All right, on to our new United States champion, as we're speaking of it, Apollo Crews. I don't think anybody, a month ago, 2 months ago, would have said that the next United States champion is going to be Apollo Crews beating Andrade. I have mixed feelings on this. You first, Ashley.
Yeah, I was not a fan, I guess I should say, to put it lightly and shortly. I had so much more hope for Andrade, and I'm really confused as to what they're doing with him lately. Out of everything great I think that they've been doing on Raw, Andrade has just been one of those odd ones for me. I don't know what the direction is they're going with him, and maybe seeing his reaction backstage, which we normally don't get to see much when a champion loses, is them visually being upset and throwing stuff backstage and all that. So maybe that could be the start of something, but I was not expecting it, and I was just mainly more disappointed for Andrade than I was happy for Apollo, as bad as that sounds. And just character-wise, as a person, I'm super happy for him after 11 years and all the work that he's put in, of course. But just character-wise, I just wasn't happy to see Andrade lose, just because I felt like they could have maybe built it up or maybe had it changed at the pay-per-view. But yeah, and I guess it really depends on the route and the story and the momentum that they put behind Apollo now going forward. Because I feel like if you do something that big, and in my opinion, it was a big move to take it off of Andrade and make that change, and for him to cut that promo afterwards, I think they need to have a direction for him, and they need to stick with him if they're going to make that type of change. So I just hope that they actually put something behind him and give us a reason to really be emotionally invested in him, because I really want to really, really like him, but there's just something missing for me personally. I don't even dislike him at all. He's great and everything. There's just something missing, in my opinion.
Well, I think what's missing is we don't know him, right? We don't know who he is. And so outside of the guy that has a big smile and comes out and is just the very just generic babyface, we don't know him, right? So I'm mixed on that because, how am I supposed to care about a character I don't know? I mean, if you followed his career, he is athletic. The announcers beat that to death, that he is super athletic. Well, that's great, but he's very one-dimensional as currently presented. And so I'm like, okay, I don't dislike him, but I don't really know him. So how am I supposed to feel joy for a guy I don't know that wins the belt? Like you said, we felt more sadness because we were more connected with Andrade as a character than we were with Apollo Crews. That's why I think I felt sad for the character of Andrade too. So I mean, I'm willing to give it a chance. I don't hate it. I just don't know how to feel about it. And I don't know if it's secretly African American History Month in WWE, and I have no problem with that. But it seems as if out of nowhere they have elevated all of their African American stars. I mean, it's fine. I don't care, but it's just kind of ironic. You have the Street Profits and MVP and Bobby Lashley in the main event of Raw. You have Bobby Lashley challenging for the championship, and then you have Apollo Crews become United States champion. It's just kind of, I'm sure, I don't know if it was by design or not, but I don't know. Maybe they have their own internal African American History Month. But whatever, it's just kind of something I noticed. So with Apollo Crews, fine, I guess. I don't know how long he's going to hold it. Probably not very long, is my guess. I would think that he might be a Braun Strowman version of the United States champion, or as he was the Intercontinental champion, and hold it for a couple of months. I think they're just kind of testing the waters when there's no crowd, and they can get away with whatever they want. There's no booing or cheering. It's just they can They can play without any consequences. And this is a great time to do it. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. This is something that, given the circumstances, I would try things that I normally wouldn't try if a live audience was there. Because I think if Apollo Crews won, I'm very interested to hear what that crowd reaction would be. It could go all different ways. It could be kind of silence. It could be people cheering like, oh, that was awesome. Or it could have been booing like, what the hell was that? Where did Apollo Crews come from winning the championship? So, yeah, I'm cool with it. I'm letting it run its course, but my guess is the course is probably a couple of months at best.
Yeah, and before we move on, I think what is lacking too, and I wish they just had more freedom, especially someone like Samoa Joe, who I believe is going to be a permanent fixture for the announce table going forward. But I wish that it really makes you miss the JR voice in WWE, right? Like giving you that backstory on a wrestler, because like, for instance, like to me, I just think back to like a Jack Swagger, because when he first came into WWE, I wasn't really familiar with him and his story and like, you know, his background and things of that nature. And you just always had JR there explaining their history and how athletic he was, and he was an All-American and things of that nature. So when he would come out and say he's an All-American I actually knew what he was referring to, and just the story behind it was just like a catch line, and you know, he actually had credentials to back him up and things of that nature. So I just think an Apollo Crews type character really suffers from the lack of freedom that the commentators have, because especially like I said, as Samoa Joe, like he would definitely, and he does. I don't want to take it from him. He does more than I think any of them right now, maybe besides Corey Graves on SmackDown, but he does go into their background and kind of connect the dots. But like a Todd Phillips, for instance, like he just like you can tell that they want to just like go into the story mode more, but there's just so many restrictions and and there's different things that they have to promote, like the pay-per-view and whatever the sponsor is and things of that nature. But in my opinion, it's just like that's just another one of those things that could be beneficial for someone like Apollo that he's just not benefiting from, and not able to benefit from, I should say.
Yeah, he could be a victim of that, and to be honest, I mean, Jim Ross has such an amazing voice. I mean, he could commentate a golf tournament, and I would be super invested. I mean, Jim Ross is just, he has that. Especially
nowadays.
Oh gosh, really? I mean, honestly, I would take golf. I would take anything. I would think most of us would take anything sports related. But yeah, he's missing the backstory. I think that if there was even a little bit of a backstory given weeks before, and yeah, he got injured. We know that he tweaked his leg, and then he went to the trainer's room and sobbed like, you know, he was about to cry that he lost his opportunity. And that kind of made me feel like I didn't actually feel sympathy for him there. I mean, I know that that's what they were going for, but this guy that was all cocky, slapping people backstage, suddenly gets a taste of his own medicine, is in the trainer's room with a tweaked knee. I mean, I didn't feel bad for him. It was because
he did a backflip. Like, It wasn't, if I'm not mistaken, it was because he did a backflip and landed, he tweaked it.
Yep.
So,
yeah,
like, slightly, like, I want to feel bad, but, like, again, it's just not enough there.
No, there's not, and I hope they don't do like a Three Sisters Bobby Lashley remake. Like, please do not talk about your sisters. Just, I don't care. I don't care if WWE has to post-produce this, pre-produce it, and just go through a slideshow of his life and have him do a quick voiceover for a couple of minutes. Fine. I mean, if you're worried that he is gonna be a disaster on the mic, then do it that way. I don't know, but yeah, I don't feel anything for Apollo because we don't know him. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. So I'm neutral about him as champion, but I do feel a little bit robbed that Andrade lost to Apollo Crews given their positioning. I mean, you had Andrade on a hot streak, and then Apollo Crews comes in with a little bit of momentum given the past few weeks before that, and then it suddenly wins. And furthermore, about Zelina Vega's group, of which you and I were really high on, I've never, ever, in all of my years of watching wrestling, seen a group form and immediately lose so much. And right. never, because that's not the rule of wrestling. They are going against all of the rules and regulations of wrestling that when you're new when you debut, when a new group forms, they're unstoppable for X amount of time. They just go on hot streaks. You know, nobody can take them down or whatever. And this group formed, and it was immediately poison because Drew McIntyre was kicking their heads off week after week, all of them. Austin Theory defects to another group and is not looking for retribution, which I don't understand why. He's just forgetting that he was beaten down and humiliated.
Right.
That's apparently not a thing, but I guess they don't want heel versus heel, so that's probably what they're going with. But then Andrade loses the United States Championship. I've never seen a group form, have a lot of promise, and immediately just get destroyed and lose their championship and get their heads kicked off. It's just, I don't understand it because there's so much there.
Yeah, I really don't either. That is one of the most disappointing things that WWE has dropped the ball on lately, and because they had so much potential. Each one of them was so charismatic and had their own version and their own character, and they had this weird vibe and this weird connection. Like, they weren't similar, but they were super talented and super charismatic, and Zelina was just like that piece that held them all together and could have. And they could have drawn this out for so long, and I don't really know why they did it. And again, I don't know, and that's what makes me question the direction that they're going with Andrade even more. If you're not going to have the group, then have them both be strong individually. Have Zelina still with Angel Garza, still represent Andrade. Austin Theory is over with Seth now and Buddy Murphy, so they're all just doing their thing, but have them still each individually be successful and dominant. So just very confused with what they're doing with the mid-card, I guess, slots on Raw.
Yeah, that seems to be where they've defined these guys, and it's a damn shame. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I mean, I don't know what the purpose of even having Austin Theory in there was. He was obviously the odd man out, given the ethnicity. But I think he fits much better, honestly, with Seth. And I like that at least this past week we got to hear from Murphy and Murphy and Austin Theory. We got to hear, albeit very memorized words. I don't care. We got to hear a little bit from them for the first time ever. And that was nice to hear. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's just a shame because there's a lot of potential. Maybe they'll kind of reinvigorate this. Zelina Vega, I mean, you and I know that she is just a damn wizard on the mic and her presence and everything else. I've spent many hours talking about her on this show and how good she is. But they're missing out here if they don't take advantage of this. There's something with Andrade. There's something with Angel Garza. Beyond Angel Garza talking about how he would make love to a woman in the middle of a United States Championship match. Like, why did that happen? Like,
so out of nowhere.
It was uncomfortable. It was
Oh,
like, is Vince on a make the viewers uncomfortable road here? Like, what? Like, what the hell was that again? Like, why would you even conduct an interview during that match?
He was so confident with it too.
Yeah. Oh, he was all in. He was all in, and it was making me very uncomfortable. And it was in the middle of a United States Championship match. There's so much bad of why you would do this, and the purpose was nothing other than to say, okay, he's a sex object for women. You could have saved that till after the match. I mean, I don't know. It was very puzzling and very. I didn't get it, and I was uncomfortable. So, all right. Well, moving on here. A couple more things, then we'll wrap it up. Let's see. Well, I guess I'll end my conversation with you with Matt Riddle because I want your thoughts on that at the end. With Moment of Bliss, and we have Nikki Cross and we have Alexa Bliss, and they have the New Day on there, and they exchange pancakes, and it's Nikki's pancakes from Scotland or whatever that her mom cooked. I mean, or her mom's recipe, or whatever. I mean, I don't, I'm really trying to be positive about this tag team with Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss. And Alexa Bliss, I love. I think she is a very good talent that I think right now she has a belt around her waist, but a belt that doesn't mean a whole lot right now. It seems as if the women that get the tag team belts there's some kind of curse or hex on it. And Alexa Bliss, I like. Nikki Cross, am I the only one that is getting kind of annoyed by her overzealousness and giddy schoolgirl and super annoying on the mic? I mean, you have Bayley on commentary with with Nikki Cross on SmackDown, and Bayley, who's the heel, and we have Alexa Bliss, who's supposed to be the babyface. I'm getting way more annoyed by Nikki Cross than I am Bayley. And she's doing this week after week, acting like she's, I don't know, on speed. I mean, she is like way over the top, always giddy, always, she's like the obsessive kind of girl at school that is somehow friends with the cool girl, and she knows that she's in the cool group, but she's still kind of giddy and over the top about it, almost to an embarrassing level. I don't know. Alexa Bliss, I like. She's always kind of she's the rock of that group. Am I the only one that's getting a little annoyed by Nikki Cross week after week?
No, and it started off as one of those things where I was like, okay, like it was a benefit, right, with the whole situation, Nikki Cross being on commentary and just them being more vocal. Obviously, ringside, you can hear them more. So I was like, okay, like this could be a plus, because obviously Nikki is crazy and she had potential in her initial version of her in character back when she was with Insanity and all that. So I always thought that she had potential, but so I was hopeful. But for me personally, it's just too much, and like just the loud screaming and just like nonstop and the nonstop cheering, it was like really taking away from the match for me and just more distracting than, in my opinion, than it helped. And it was, Bayley was making like more sense and like more points than Nikki was. So it was just one of those things. And for that matter, so was Corey Graves. And the one thing I will say I enjoy is just seeing Michael Cole and Corey Graves just like more relaxed and more just like buddy with each other and just like more open and like actually laughing and cutting jokes. And especially like when Nikki's out there and like they're just reacting more to what's actually happening and not just being like stuck to like what they're supposed to do. Like there's just it's just a different vibe. So I will say that is a plus out of all of this, but yeah, and I don't know. I think part of me kind of thinks that they lose the titles, and I kind of think that Nikki is going to turn on Alexa, and they're going to kind of go that route. Because then, of course, you'll be focusing on Sasha and Bayley, and you won't really need to worry about a rematch or anything of that nature. But I think maybe that's what it's leading up to, especially with the passionate promo that Nikki cut last week. I think you can kind of go the route where she kind of snaps for people still not taking her seriously and just brushing her off and just taking her as a joke. Yeah, so I kind of hope that that's the route that they go in. But yeah, for me personally, I don't hate it and it's not like terrible, but I'm just not really feeling it.
Yeah, maybe that's the road they're going unintentionally with laying groundwork for Nikki being the heel in that program, and I would be all for that. I think that's the road to go, because at the beginning we all thought it was Alexa who was using Nikki, and that probably was the story until they actually had great on-screen chemistry and things started to click. So I don't think WWE can claim ownership of this being a long story arc, because they probably just stumbled into this with the chemistry of Alexa and Nikki. And now, having the reverse happen of Nikki turn on Alexa, yes, I think that there's a lot to pull from that. It would kind of be a throwback to Victoria, who was the psychopath against who
She's
was
so
it?
Underrated.
Yes. Oh, big
She's
time.
always one of my faves.
Yes, and so you could do that kind of psychotic personality. Alexa's or Nikki's already shown that. So there's groundwork there. Wouldn't be too far of a stretch. Her just losing her mind. Maybe Alexa didn't invite her to, I don't know, invite her over this weekend, or didn't call her enough times, or like you could do things that are clearly psychotic, of like the overbearing, overpossessive friend that always wants your attention. There's a lot to pull from there. So yes, please, I hope WWE does that. I think that'd be a great storyline. And so the other thing is, as we touched on Sasha a little bit, when do we see Sasha finally snap on Bayley? They have been, and they keep continuing to tease it, and they're doing a great job of stringing it out. And from things I've read online, take that with a grain of salt, but that they're stretching this out longer or pausing this for when maybe they have fans back, and they're not going to be pulling the trigger on this match just yet because of the current situation. But given that, they're still teasing it week after week of Bayley volunteering Sasha for matches and cutting her off and answering for her. They're laying the groundwork very nicely. That's clearly where they're headed. You can read Sasha's body language. It's very subtle. It's not over the top. But it's just what, I guess, I mean, it's hard to predict. When, roughly, do you think they'll finally get the split and see Sasha snap on Bayley?
Yeah, I think if it was a normal world, I think the seeds would have been planted at Money in the Bank. I think Sasha would have won. We would have had a story of who's she going to go after? Is she going to turn on Bayley? Bayley would be like, of course, she wouldn't choose me. She's relieved that, she doesn't have to worry about the contract holder. So in my opinion, I think that's probably the initial route that they were going to go in. And of course, everything changed. And I don't blame them, if that's what they are waiting on and trying to drag it out until they can do it in front of actual fans. I mean, I don't blame them, like if they don't have to do it right now, then why, and it's not like Sasha is completely oblivious to it and just has no idea what Bayley's doing. Like she's not dumb. Like she's hearing what Charlotte is saying. Like she's hearing what Alexa Bliss is saying. Like she's seeing what Bayley is doing and saying. And like she's not stupid. I just think that Sasha right now is just kind of collecting everything. And I think the route that she's going in is she's just kind of waiting and biding her time and waiting for the right moment. So I think things will probably start ramping up soon. Cause I just kind of feel like this is going to culminate at SummerSlam for a weird reason. I don't know why, but again, they could drag this out longer, but I think at that point they kind of need to either do it or just move them to a different show, because you can't just keep having this weird tension and like these weird comments and then do absolutely nothing with it. You either have to have it lead to them breaking up, or when the draft happens or whatever, then have them move shows if you don't pull the trigger, if you in fact are waiting for fans, and we still haven't gotten to it at that point. But I mean, I'm not one of those people who are like, why haven't they done it yet? Am I surprised they haven't? Yeah, just because WWE normally doesn't really show patience, especially with certain, because that would be a big deal and that would be a good talking point and people would be hooked on that and want to see how it plays out. So I am surprised that they haven't yet, but I'm fine with them dragging it out for a little while longer.
Me too. They've teased it for months now, and prior to WrestleMania they were teasing it, and they're still teasing it. I like the slow burn, but I don't know if it's an intentional slow burn, as you said, because WWE is often very impatient. They know their fans are impatient, but given circumstances, this is probably the way to go. At the same time, there is a balancing act of how many more times are we going to show the tension building before we finally pay this thing off. We can't go forever, but do we want to do it before SummerSlam? I think SummerSlam is the furthest you could go that fans would actually be interested in that match. I mean, again, this is me talking, 3 months in advance of the match happening? A little less than 3 months, but to me, like, there are things you can do. Maybe Sasha, quote, accidentally costs Bayley a match or two, not her championship, because then when they eventually meet, it's probably going to be for the SmackDown Women's Championship. But I like the tension. I like the subtle body language still. I'm still okay with the pace that they're going. But can they continue this for another 2.5 months before SummerSlam? I don't know. Or do they just blow it off at, Extreme Rules that's after Backlash? Maybe. There are paths in which you can get to the SummerSlam event and do it there, but I don't know. Are they going to be able to string it out for another? So if it's 2.5 months, that means there's 10 shows. Can they string it out another 10, 11 shows? I don't know. But eventually that's what they're headed. And to be honest, I don't know who else Bayley can run through over the next 2 months before she gets to Sasha. I mean, there's not anybody, as she says in her promos, Bayley's kind of run through everybody. She even beat Charlotte last week, who WWE just cannot help themselves but have Charlotte on every show that they do. But she has truly kind of run the gamut. And there really isn't a whole lot left for her to conquer. So this is the logical next step. But I don't know. I like it so far. I'm patient with storylines.
Yeah, and especially with Sonya Deville and Lacey Evans actually having a separate feud that's not related to the title. So you even have like that little portion of the division tied up right now as well. So you really don't, because I don't even, correct me if I'm wrong, but does Bayley even have like a storyline going into Backlash right now? I think she's just kind of chilling right now.
Yeah, she's just kind of floating in.
So
yeah.
I'm not really sure what they're gonna do with Bayley. Of course, everything depends on if they end up winning the tag team titles. Because I think that'll really show us too what happens and what route that they're gonna go in and how this all plays out. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the moment when it actually happens to finally see it, if that makes sense.
And I think, and rightly so, they want to be in front of fans when that happens, but it's one of those moments that's where fans are so fans are so needed for pro wrestling anyway, but exponentially more in big returns, big matches, and big turns.
Especially for Sasha. She always generates that reaction, no matter if it's a good reaction or a bad reaction. It's always passionate. Whatever it is about her, she just always generates that. So it's just so unfortunate. Yep. I agree.
At the same time, with Bayley, I think she's done an awesome job lately too. Yes. Really finally understanding what the heel Bayley is. For a while, it felt like she was kind of floating around, not knowing. She cut her hair, but she didn't have a whole lot to say. She eventually changed her music, and it was good, but I don't think she found her footing. She's, I think, really understanding what the heel Bayley character is, and has done a great job on the mic. I look forward to her every week. She just seems to luck out in her matches. I love how she cheats to win. Everything right now with Bayley is clicking on all cylinders. And in-ring, on mic, presentation, character, I think Bayley's got it together.
Yeah, Bayley has been the MVP for SmackDown for their women's division. Asuka has been on Raw. I think Bayley has been that on SmackDown. And again, she is one of those who I think has really benefited from not having fans there, because she is so much more vocal now, and that's what we really needed for this heel version of Bayley. We needed to hear her be nasty and just be annoying and yell at Michael Cole. Her going back and forth with him just cracks me up. It's just I look forward to it whenever she comes out. Just because it acknowledges the realness, right? That they're literally 5-10 feet from the commentators, so obviously they can hear what they're saying. So of course, if Michael Cole is saying something about me, I would want to react and say, whatever back too. So it just kind of plays into it, and it's fun to see her embrace it and truly grow. And I think once Sasha does either turn on Bayley or they do end up breaking up, I think that in and of itself too is going to be such a benefit for the heel version of Bayley too, because a good babyface Sasha Banks is just going to be so beneficial to a heel Bayley, and really just help Bayley grow and just hopefully take it to the next level. Because imagine if it happens and then Bayley beats Sasha on their first match against each other.
That's the thing. I think Bayley or Sasha turning is inevitable. We all know that eventually Sasha's going to have, the point of enough is enough, and she turns on Bayley, snaps, and assumingly the crowd explodes. And we're all waiting for that moment. Even though it's kind of predictable, it's fine because we want it. At the same time, do you want to have Sasha beat Bayley clean off the bat? The answer, I would say, is no. Because there's a bigger fish to fry here in building Bayley continuing to build Bayley, because you've already turned Sasha. She's now the fan favorite. She's where the fans want her to be. If you have Bayley beat her in the first, maybe second match, and it's some kind of underhanded way to retain the championship, how angry is that going to make fans and want to see Bayley lose that much more? Because everyone thinks, we're all assuming that not only is Sasha going to turn on Bayley, but she's going to be the one to take the championship off of her. Well, what if that doesn't happen? What if, or at least it takes a few tries for that to happen? That, I think, is something we're not thinking about. I mean, I'm assuming it up until I just talked about it right now that, yeah, she's going to probably take it off her right off the bat. I don't know. I wouldn't do it. I like the build. I would book it to take it a couple of times to make it happen. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I could go on all night with it, but yeah, I'll try to keep it short. I agree.
Well, no, that definitely is short. Yes. All right. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, and then I'll toss it to you if there's anything. I mean, there are things. Look, I mean, like, there are things I skipped. There are little nuggets here and there that I did not discuss. But if there's anything, we could chat about it after. But the last little note I had was about Matt Riddle coming to SmackDown with Kurt Angle, who has been apparently rehired by WWE for, again, I read this, that apparently there's fear that he was going to go to AEW, so they wanted to just not necessarily take him back because they wanted him back, but rather take him back so AEW couldn't have him. Whatever the case may be, Kurt seems to be back on some kind of basis with WWE, who he is there to basically read a teleprompter behind the camera and talk about Matt Riddle and how he refereed his match, and he's the original bro and all this stuff. And for people that don't watch NXT, and I watch sporadically because I simply don't have the time, Matt Riddle is, from what I've seen, is a very magnetic character that is athletic, unique on the mic, and has that clear it. And I think WWE sees that as well. If you have Kurt Angle, Legend of Kurt Angle, endorsing a guy like Matt Riddle and announcing it ahead of time and trying to get the rub from Kurt, they clearly see Matt Riddle as a big-time player, or at least anticipate him to become a big-time player. So I'm looking forward to it. It's certainly new blood on SmackDown. We all love new as wrestling fans. I think it could be a big addition to SmackDown. How are you viewing this Matt Riddle call-up? Do you have any matches that you'd love to see, or how they'll position him?
Yeah, at first I think it's pretty telling that they had Kurt Angle announce that he's debuting on SmackDown and introduce the video package instead of just randomly throwing a vignette and saying, coming up next, Matt Riddle, blah, 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 maybe showing like a quick 30-minute pack or a 30-second package. You can tell they really put time and effort into it. And I have a good feeling for Matt Riddle. And I think SmackDown was the perfect brand for him to debut on. And I think it will be a travesty if we do not get Riddle and Goldberg, especially since Goldberg is technically on the SmackDown brand, if we're being technical. So I'm just saying, man, we gotta get her. They gotta reference it somehow. But I'm very hopeful for Matt Riddle. I'm a huge Matt Riddle fan. To me, he's kind of like a weird hybrid of like Kurt Angle's agility and wrestling sense, and then Brock Lesnar's strength, and then maybe like RVD's like odd charismatic promo and just likability, where he doesn't really have to talk much, but you just know he's like this cool down-to-earth guy who loves wrestling, loves what he does, and then when he's not wrestling, he just wants to chill out and just, he's just an easygoing guy. So I think that's what they need. I think he'll bring star power in a weird way right off the bat. And that's just my opinion. I could be overhyping him in my head, but I think that that's someone that SmackDown will need. And I think he'll be one of those odd characters that can be a babyface versus a babyface, but he doesn't either take the heel route or make his opponent take like heel tendencies. They can just have a good wrestling match, a good hard-hitting match, and then be done and move on. But as far as like maybe one-on-one matches or any dream matches, I think right off the bat, Bryan for sure. just because I think that would be such like a good like wrestling classic. I'm not sure if you saw his match with Thatcher this past week on NXT in the Fight Pit, but it was just so amazing. And I don't think they'll necessarily get as brutal, but him and Daniel Bryan I think would just be amazing. And then of course like like your the for sure ones like your AJ Styles is and maybe like a Shinsuke Nakamura of course, but there's just so many things that you can do with Matt, and then maybe his eventual heel turn. Man, that just I couldn't even imagine what a heel Matt Riddle would look like. Because I've never seen it if he has been that version of himself in the past. But I just think there's a lot you can do with him, and I'm hopeful for him because I don't think why would they bring him up right now? And I guess we could say this about any of them, but especially now of all times, like why bring him up if you're not going to actually do something, because he hasn't really gone for the NXT championship. Like he hasn't, he has like a couple times, but he hasn't really had that strong run to go after it or having it. So it's interesting timing for sure. So I think that says a lot in and of itself too.
And that's so important. The long-term plans. And every time I say long-term plans, it's like I'm speaking a different language to WWE, but I really do hope that the long-term plan for this guy, and when I say long-term, I'm saying 6 to 12 months, is set in stone, that we're going to go this road, right? We're going to put him against wrestler X for a few pay-per-views. We'll move into here, move him here. This is a guy that he's a special talent. You just outlined some great matches that he should have. Not even hope. He should have these matches with Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles. Goldberg has to happen, for God's sakes, please. Goldberg, it's a slam dunk. I mean, if anyone's been watching the social media prior to WrestleMania, I mean, he was calling out Brock. He called out Goldberg. He was basically just trying to make a name for himself and pissing the guys off.
Yeah, and they had that brief interaction backstage.
That's right. Yes.
So just do it. Like, come on, just give it to us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, don't.
He'll get a great payday. It's
exactly.
Fine.
And Goldberg doesn't exactly work by the hour. It'll be under 2 minutes.
You're just in Florida, so it's, this, I mean, there's just too many pros than cons. You don't even have to like each other. Just do a quick 5-10 minute match, however you want to do it, and be done. Because Riddle could carry it, Riddle is kind of like an AJ Styles in that way. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but he could carry, especially with like a Goldberg or like even like a Braun Strowman. Like he is one of those rare guys who, even being at his size, like he's agile enough to carry a match and make it believable. So there's just way too many pros than cons. Just egos aside, just do what you gotta do for the match. It'll both be super beneficial for both of you. Hopefully more so for Riddle than Goldberg. Because of course Riddle should go over, but that's a whole. Don't even want to get into it. It's just man, just do it, and it's fun, Well,
that's the thing. That's what makes me fearful of this match is what if they just say, well, Goldberg should win? Well, no, Goldberg shouldn't win this. That's what my fear is.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, WrestleMania we had Braun Strowman beat Goldberg, but it's WrestleMania. That's your time to anoint a new champion. My fear is that they look at Goldberg and Goldberg says he doesn't want to do the job and that it doesn't make sense for him to lose to Matt Riddle. That's my fear. Like I could see that happening where they just decide, it doesn't make sense. Goldberg's the bigger star, blah, blah. Like that's what scares me about that match that we want. So, all right. Well, that is all I had on my list. And again, I know for everyone listening, you're probably thinking, you didn't touch on this. We really don't have the time to go into details about everything. But I will be, what the heck is today? Today's Sunday. I'm losing my mind. Tomorrow's June 1st. Wow, that happened quick.
Right.
But I'm not sad. I'm not sad about it being June because even though it's going to be like 40 degrees here tonight, it looks like, and it's, I don't know what the hell's going on, but I mean, seriously, like 3 weeks ago it was snowing, and then we get 90 degrees for a few days, and then it's 35, 40 degrees here tonight, and then it's going to be back in the 80s next week. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to like look from like a biblical perspective to see if this is like the end times, right? Like
I know.
Some may
I was
right.
literally thinking that the other day.
Seriously, like if you look at all the signs of the end times, like we have checked the box out of 9 out of 10 of them probably.
Yeah.
So anyway, Ashley, did you have anything else that you wanted to comment on additionally, or anything else that we didn't touch on?
No, I think that was everything. Like you said, there's so many things that we could talk about, but that we would literally be here for like 5 hours. So I think that's a good wrap up for now. Besides, free you on Twitter. It's still
please.
Unfortunate.
I'm in Twitter
it's so
jail.
weird not having you, and going to your page, like all your tweets are just gone. It's just like ads and stuff. Like you still see like your follower count and all that crap, but like there's no tweets and everything. It's just so sad.
When I log in, it says I have 0 followers and 0 people I'm following, but I can see all my old tweets. I can't like anything. I can't follow new people. I'm seriously in Twitter jail. I don't know what felony I committed. They just said, oh, no, F you. We're not going to tell you why, but you're going here. You
have a right to defend yourself.
Yeah. They read me my rights, but didn't allow me to actually use my rights.
You're still in the holding cell.
Yeah. I'm in jail without bail. Nothing. So hopefully for those listening, please free me from jail. Maybe they can sign a petition and start it. I don't know. It's killing me. Trust me. There's so many times I'm like, I just want to say this. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this. Wrestling related, guys, not George Floyd related. And I'm like, hey, it's killing me. And all I can do is just sit at my computer here and talk. But I love the tweet. So, damn. Yeah. All right. Well, Ashley, thanks again. But before you go, let everyone know where they can follow you on, Twitter accounts that actually freaking work.
Yeah, mine still works for now. I'm at ASHMANNS. So yeah, feel free to give me a follow and I will follow you back.
Yeah, no fair. All right. Well, Ashley, thank you again for coming on. We'll touch base soon. And I know that we did talk about discussing the Undertaker Last Ride documentary. I've reviewed it solo by myself, 1 and 2 and 3, but I really want to bounce this whole thing off somebody, and definitely as things roll on, we can come back on for that specifically. Unfortunately, they've really strung out part 3 and part 4 by 3 weeks. I don't know why.
It's so weird.
I'm so frustrated. I'm like, they're coming June 14th, or I'm like, what do you mean June 14th? Whatever the heck it is.
I think that's when Backlash is, so I don't know if they're just correlating them with the pay-per-views or not.
Probably. And, oh, God, there's just, the whole thing is just the best piece of wrestling footage I've ever seen from a documentary perspective. Is. So, so we'll have to definitely come back on for that. But in the meantime, I'm sure we'll have you on to discuss all the things happening in wrestling. So, thank you for coming on, Ashley. We will be in touch soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.